What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is Challengers. Today, I'm wearing a purple hat facing backwards. I've got my glasses on, and I've got a Marvel t-shirt on just to help. And this film is described by Deluxe with William Michael Redmond, and I've seen it now, and we have comments. I have comments. I talked to other people so that I could even have more comments. I found other people that I knew who had seen Challengers, and we discussed it because I had thoughts on this. So just a quick cursory. It's directed by Luca Guadagnino, who more recently impressed me with Bones and All, mainly because usually cannibal stories revolt me. Like, I cannot watch them. There have been very, very few films in this subgenre that I've been like, yeah, I could do that. Um, it's been a little bit easier being blind. Honestly, I've added a couple more titles when I don't have to watch it, but it's still so like stomach churning to me. But Bones and All, I thought was terrific, and Mark Rylance's performance in that was phenomenal. And it really just what Luca did with that, and the fact that I went in that film thinking like I don't want to watch this, and it surprised me. But I don't really like Call Me by Your Name that much. I think it's okay. I think it's overrated, and that's sort of where I'm at with Luca. Like his biggest film, the film where everybody's like, oh my God, Call Me by Your Name. I'm just like, it was fine. uh you know, I don't know what to tell you guys. I felt like I was supposed to contribute to the conversation. It's like, let's ask the gay blind film critic what he thinks about Call Me by Your Name. It's all right. I don't know, man. I just don't know what to tell you. So it doesn't do anything for me. um like I, we should not be expected as gay critics to like every film with gay content. That should not be a thing. So shockingly, I'm not a fan of Call Me by Your Name. I don't hate it. I'm not saying it's bad. Not a fan. Two different things. Um, it's okay. It's okay. I don't want to trigger the Timothy Chalamet fans out there. So Challengers is super hyped and totally like coming into this. What I remember from Challengers was that it was the first movie to move. As soon as there was like a writers actor strike, and they were like, I don't know what's going to happen with the awards season in 2023, they moved Challengers, and I was like, well, that is a great indication that that studio feels really good about the awards prospects. Oh, it's in April. So I got very confused because I was like, well, they're taking Challengers out. Obviously, they feel like, it's going to have a much better chance. I don't know why it's in April. I would not say that helps its chances. But we've got Zendaya, we've got Josh O'Connor, we've got Mike Feist here. So three rising stars. And they're essentially in a love triangle. We are introduced to Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, who are tennis double partners, and Zendaya is also a tennis player in her own right, and is kind of like a superstar. She's got all these endorsement deals, and they're enamored with her, not just because she's beautiful, but also because she's indicated to be, at the time that they meet her, above them on the sort of totem pole of tennis. Think like Serena Williams versus some guys starting out. Like, it's kind of what it feels like at the beginning. But they kind of take their shot, and they both end up flirting with her, and she ends up flirting with both of them, creating this weird sort of dynamic where these two people who are best friends end up sort of kind of constantly vying for her attention. And she figures out how to push and pull just enough on both of them as the film is going, and maintain her relationships and her holds over both of them. It's really kind of an amazing thing that Zendaya pulls off here. to try to push them to be at the top of her game. Like, she's such a tennis junkie that she uses herself, but you can't call her like a groupie because she's actually a player. Like, you see her in her own right with all of her endorsements. So she's not like a groupie. It's a very interesting concept. So there's some things I wanted to talk about, and they have to do with the audio description. So that's basically the movie, and I'll tell you more thoughts on that after the end. But I don't want my blind audience to wander off on me and be like, hey, this is just I do have thoughts. Step one, I love William Michael Redmond. Redmond. There's no D at the end. I would all day, every day, love to hear him on a horror movie. Like, any horror movie. I'm happy when he's on a horror movie. I also think he's great on action movies. Suspense movies, thriller movies, sure. You know, not necessarily like a horror movie, but like a suspense, sure. I don't know why he's on Challengers. He's not the right narrator for this. He works a lot. They don't need to offer him every single movie. I'm sure he makes enough money. And I'm sure that there was a project, by the way, like Immaculate. I did not like the narrator choice for that. He would have been amazing on Immaculate. But sadly, I guess they gave him Challengers instead. So I know like it's different companies and different companies hire different narrators, but you guys really have to think about who you're casting and think about how audio description really can bring the thing together. It's like the missing puzzle piece for blind people. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't, like, sighted people got the full puzzle. We got like a puzzle with some missing pieces, and you're putting them together, and you're adding in the mixing and the sound and the writing and the narrator. And if you don't put the right narrator in, it doesn't fit the puzzle. He doesn't really fit this puzzle. It's kind of this like sexy, young, I don't even know what genre this is. It's not really a romance. It's very odd. The Challengers is sort of like its own thing. It's an amalgamation of concepts and ideas. And I wouldn't have put Redmond on this. He wouldn't even have been in my top 50 to call and be like, hey, I've got a job. Do you want it? But I would say he's in like my top 10 personal favorites. So just to go to show you that I really do try to think about, is this person right for this thing? Even if it means somebody that I love not being attached to it. So that's one. Number two, I do want to say for Deluxe, whoever was the writer, unfortunately, only their narrators get credit. The written narration for the tennis scenes are fantastic. As somebody who just reviewed Federer 12 final days, if you watched that review, you would know I'm not really a huge fan of tennis. And that film was kind of like, eh. I was like, well, maybe I'll learn something. And then I was like, this is more just for Roger Federer fans / tennis junkies. I'm not really a huge fan of tennis. But the tennis scenes in this are fire. They are incredibly well described. They include camera angles and shots. From everything that I've heard from sighted critics, they're shot amazingly well. Everybody's pushing for an editing nomination for this at the Oscars. I think it's going to be left behind, but they're like, we can't leave this behind for editing because of the way that these matches are edited is just so well done. Between Josh O'Connor and Mike Weiss, specifically the one that we keep cutting back and forth to, that kind of lasts throughout the whole film, on and off. Really well done, tracking the ball and where it's going, and I felt like I was right there, and whatever the audience was seeing that looked really cool and impressive that everybody was talking about, I felt like I was getting that, or the best representation that I could get of that, possibly. So that was good. And then we get to sort of the other element of Challengers, which everybody's talking about how sexy it is and how whatever, you know. I've heard this called the horniest film of the year, and that was one of the things I talked about with the other people who'd seen Challengers. I was like, is this really the horniest film of the year? Because I did not get that from the audio description. And what I would say is this is where I felt the audio description lacked, and it's one of the problems that we have a lot with audio description is really getting into the intimate scenes and figuring out how to do them correctly. Now, Liz Gutman with Bridgerton has raised that bar. It's really hard to sit here and listen to Challengers after listening to Bridgerton and be like, oh my God, Challengers is really getting me. It did not move the needle at all. So, I just kind of felt like I was like, I don't know if this film is really what everybody else says it is. I know it's not necessarily graphically sexual. It's not Euphoria, or even the peach scene in Call Me by Your Name, but there's a lot of sexual tension, and I just felt like, I don't know. I feel like a different writer or somebody more experienced in handling these scenes more deftly would have been able to capture that. I felt like that was left behind. So, on one hand, the writing for the tennis stuff was amazing. On the other hand, the writing for these scenes where they just like sit and stare at each other, and you can feel that like something, like they want something to happen, and they're just like undressing each other with their eyes. And it's just like these really intense moments. I felt like those are just kind of like, oh, this is tame, you know? And part of that is the film's hype. Part of that is what the film is selling itself as and hyping itself as. So it's not like, I don't want to like throw this film away and say, no, this is crap. Because a lot of that can be put onto just the way a film is marketed and then what fans choose to talk about, and then the expectation, the bar gets raised so infinitely high that you can't ever touch it. And maybe the film was never that sexy. Maybe if I had watched this cold at a film festival at its premiere, I would have had a completely different reaction to it and been like, wow, great, good stuff. But then I would have had a problem being, as people left, starting having this conversation still about the film's horniness, and I was like, wait a minute, I didn't get horniness. Where did you, come back? So, I just don't know. But for me, I can't say this is the best audio description track of the year, but I do want to say, singularly, that the tennis segments here are fantastic. It should be a different narrator, and I'm not really sure the intimate stuff works. That being said, moving on. Challengers is a film. I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. It's not like, I don't feel like the need to include it in my best picture list. And I don't think it's because I was let down because of the horniness. I see Luca's craft. I don't think he topped himself. Interestingly enough, the film that I thought I would like the least of his, Bones and All, is still something I think that is really his achievement in terms of filmmaking and style. He does benefit a lot from a pulsating soundtrack, which I'm so glad I watched this at home, by the way, and not in theaters. I know that that's shocking because people are like, well, this was in IMAX. I lived in an IMAX. Great. You know what I heard from a lot of critics? I couldn't hear the dialogue, and those were sighted critics. I heard sighted critics complaining about how, because of Luca's choice for score, that he couldn't hear the dialogue. And this is something that I dealt with Oppenheimer. My theatrical experience for Oppenheimer was fucking terrible. So I completely understand. And it's something that, like, movie theater junkies, as somebody who worked for like 4 different chains and spent my life like screening movies and stuff, I get it. It's not just, I'm not saying there isn't a place for theaters, but projectionists are not projectionists anymore. Everything's a digital download, and they don't have to pay attention to it anymore. So films are loud without any reason for being loud. And they're set at volume levels based on auditoriums that, oh, well, maybe this was full last night with 300 people in it. And then you see it the next day and there's like 10, but it's set and there's no sound absorption. So it's like way louder than it needs to be. And nobody's paying attention to that kind of stuff anymore. We used to actually have to pay attention to that kind of stuff as a projectionist. um, when I actually had film, actual, and that was my job. When you were projection, when you were assigned a projection, you stayed in the booth. You didn't do other jobs. You didn't have to run downstairs. It was your job to make sure that the quality of the presentation was as best as it could be. I don't think that's happening anymore. I think they're just like letting it play. Everything is sort of automated. You get your pre-show, and then the time clicks, and then the film starts. And the sound is set to whatever it's set at. And so, if it's imbalanced, if it's too loud, if it's whatever, then you're missing out on things. And I had that experience with Oppenheimer. It was way too loud, just unbearably loud. I had tinnitus for like months from watching Oppenheimer. And Challengers, I heard it from several critics that they were like, I couldn't understand the dialogue. You know what I could understand? The dialogue. I got a digital copy of this shit and it was balanced. It was properly fucking balanced, you assholes. So I love the fact that sometimes I wait and see this shit at home because I understood every single fucking word of dialogue. So for every sided critic that was like, yeah, the score was like really loud and I couldn't understand the dialogue in some of these scenes, but I love the movie. Guess what? I heard every word. So there's something to be said for the home experience, and when it's done right, when somebody who actually works, at making this presentation actually sells a digital copy of Challengers that actually doesn't sound like ass, where it's actually balanced and the audio description track is balanced and Deluxe does a good job of weaving that in and out, and the pulsate, and I got the score, you know what I'm saying? I got the score, my TV was turned up, but it was also balanced in a way where I could actually hear what they were saying. So I win. That's what I'm trying to say. Do I think any of these people deserve an Oscar nomination? I think Zendaya is going to get an Oscar nomination at some point in her career anyway. I think between Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, I don't think it's fair to nominate one and not the other. So I would just immediately throw them both out of the race because I don't think there's a world in which either one of them could get in. And I don't think it's fair for one of them to get nominated and not the other. They basically give the same level of performance and they're very interchangeable. It's Zendaya is the question, is how good is her performance? And to answer that, what I would say is we've seen better Zendaya. We see it in Euphoria. So the best is yet to come for Zendaya. And you can say that that's an unreasonable expectation to try to set for her, except for it's not. It just means that she has to choose the right projects and the right roles. She was almost there with Malcolm and Mary, which was really a good film for her that just kind of went under the radar. She was almost there. Like, it could have been that. Challengers has fleeting moments of that, just like her performance in Dune. Like, these are all good performances. But, like, as far as, like, would I be angry if she got a nomination? No, I'm not going to be angry if she got an Oscar nomination. But do I think, like, this is the pinnacle of her career? She's young. And, again, no, because we've seen Euphoria, which is half the reason why Zendaya is such a huge star. So, her potential is so much greater. And I can't wait to see what she continues to do and challenges herself with. And I love that she's working with directors like Luca Guadagnino and Denis Villeneuve. She's attracting talented directors to work with her. And that is the best thing of all. Because if she can get with the right director and the right project, she'll win. She won't just get nominated, she'll win. So, those are my thoughts on Challengers. If I had to nominate this film for anything, I would say definitely editing. I mean, those tennis scenes had to be a bitch. It sounded like a bitch. Definitely editing. I think the score is interesting. I wouldn't mind score. I don't know if it's going to end up in score. It's on like my score list now because the year's been slow for score. Like I have the first Omen is on my is in like my top list of scores right now. So, um, yeah, so it's like it's there, but I don't know. I don't know if this film will last. But I do think I hope it does because of editing. I hope it gets an editing nomination. Anyway, challengers, complicated thoughts on audio description. It's a it's a solid movie. It really is, with some really strong performances and a really complex idea about this obsession that we have with greatness and striving for it and the drive and what pushes us. And a lot of thoughts about this. I don't know what genre to call it. It's not really romance. It's not really a thriller. It's not a comedy. It's not really sports. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the best thing I can come up with. It's not really a genre. It's sort of like a thing. So it's sports. I'm gonna give Challengers an A-. I did really enjoy the film. I've seen better films this year already. So anyway, that's it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.